Welcome to the Recon Directive, where we discuss current ongoings of the Pokemon TCG. This is Mark.
Hello.
And Wave Racer, and for this first episode, allow us to introduce ourselves. Mark here has 3 day 2s at regional Pokemon events, and I have 2 invites to the Yu-Gi-Oh! National Championships. But what we have in common is that we love GLC, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Specifically, let's discuss the banning of double Colorless and Twin Energy. So Mark, what makes a card worth looking into banning?
Usually it does too much, / it makes the game unbearable to play. That's like the main 2 criteria.
So for that second qualifier, you mean cards like Lysander's trump card, right? That just prolongs the game, makes it unfun.
That and also Forest of Giant Plants cards that are I'm doing way too much, and also my opponent doesn't get to play because in that case, I guess you can do Vileplume or I got to Grottle and I searched a guy and then I have the biggest body on the planet and Torterra right afterwards just because I can stuff like that.
Or cards like Amazing Kyogre where you just get it off on turn 2 and then you win.
Yeah, or Raikou at that point. The same kind of thing.
So, in that regards, do you think Double Energy and Twin Energy are comparable to those cards?
They do too much, but I don't think this is gonna. I'm a hater because I play Colorless, so I'm gonna sound so biased. But I don't think that they fully fit unfun or unplayable play pattern kind of vibe.
It definitely feels overtuned to me, but I never felt like it was an auto loss when my opponent goes turn 1 attach, turn 2 attach a basic energy into a Snorlax or something.
That feels like the requirement to get going in Colorless, and then your deck is strong because of that, but it's not. I'm not auto winning the game unless my opponent is not playing the game for a separate reason.
Do you think the reason that it's banned is because it was broken, or is it some other reason, like the feel of the game?
I do think it is because it's broken. Kind of an interesting argument that I think made me a little more content with the ban, kind of about design space for cards going forward. We can't really see the future or know exactly what the direct philosophies are for cards that are going to be coming out, but rotation happening and double turbo leaving means that there's a period of time that we're going to have cards that have double energy requirements that are without double turbo. And so they can be released, at least at first, without those kind of energy cards in mind. And if that kept happening, say this new say a new broken Slackoth came out and it had the craziest double attach of all time, that kind of card can exist in standard because there's no double energy for us to access. But then GLC feels the fallout of that, and cards like double Colorless and Twin, and to a lesser extent double Turbo, become better and better and better. The natural progression of the game and energy requirements for attacks by default are always looking for a reason to break energy cards that do more than they should.
So what you're saying is Pokemon as a card game is built around the standard format, and
oh yeah, 100%.
And because of that, they'll create cards that would be broken with double turbo because it doesn't exist in standard anymore after rotation.
Exactly. And I think even it's kind of evident with Lugia when it first came out. I feel this one I started playing, so I can't really, maybe I'm totally wrong, but a lot of the cards that were played in it, like Raikou and Yveltal and stuff, they did not feel like they belonged with Aurora Energy and Archeops at the same time. Those cards just felt way, way, way too good together. But that kind of situation is basically what happens with double Colorless Twin and double Turbo, all together with Unfaced Pat Snorlax, Hop Snorlax, and then insert anything else that could possibly come out.
Yeah, it's a 3 of in a
1 of. Yeah, it I saw that as well. People saying it kind of breaks the rule. I think even the write up for the ban was it's a 3 of functionally, which is I can get behind that for the most part. I'll kick my feet a little bit, but Psychomaniac and Mallow can exist or whatever. Things like that. That's less impactful, I guess.
Speaking from the perspective of design philosophy, that's kind of interesting because GLC is compared a lot to EDH, and I feel like the Magic design team, I feel like they make cards for the standard format that has Commander in mind, but Pokemon doesn't really do that yet. And in that sense, are we concerned that cards are going to come out that will continue not to mesh with GLC? I feel like that's Fan Rotom for us, because in standard Fan Rotom finds Hoot Hoot, Noctowl, Bouffalant sometimes, and it's just a good starter. But For GLC, it's a 70-80% chance to set up your board by turn 2, whether that's like a draw engine with Bibarrel and Squovit, or with lesser draw that synergizes with like Mallow and Cyphermaniac. Is cards being released for standard that don't mesh well for GLC still a concern for you?
Yes, but it's like part of the fun because new cards is always the breaking point, or like when is it too far? Which I guess in this case is not that it's that the new cards are too far, it's that the old cards like just can't exist with them.
So this is kind of the part that gets me, because GLC is effectively a custom version of Expanded. And like you said, the fun of it is finding those combinations that usually don't exist. And attaching 2 energies at a time to a Pokemon that needs 3 energy to attack doesn't seem like the most egregious thing that could happen over the history of 10 plus years of Pokemon cards being put together.
It's not the worst thing by far. Like that's, I think, a given. But it's also every deck kind of has a broken thing that they do. Like having every double energy card be like attach for your deck is the colorless thing. Now there is, it has like the infinite draw engine, Fan Rotom, Goose Mahal, the greatest card of all time, strapped to its back. It has all those things. But those are also like less extreme. It's just that Colorless has those, and then it has like energy on top of it. But like Water has double Rain Dance cards and like Unkillable Whale, and then Dragon is Colorless 0.99, where it's like almost the exact same thing, where it does a double attach. Cheating, very powerful guy that does a lot. Psychic is Psychic. I'm not even gonna talk about that deck. That deck's broken. Like it has just like really good tools in general. Like that, like they all do a broken thing, and those decks are the ones that have the most eyes on them because they're seemingly the best decks. And like Colorless has like a very simple broken part of it.
Because they're all stat sticks with high attack costs, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you bring up identity. I've heard discussion online that by being forced to tech in for Colorless or the best second format, that your deck loses identity. But I do agree that Colorless kind of loses that kind of vanilla high stat stick identity. How much do you think type identity should be valued when it comes to banning cards?
It should be respected. Like, it's crazy. I would say before we officially got a ban that it should matter a pretty good amount just for like the flavor of it all. But after like really sitting on it and thinking about like how bans should actually operate for a game, which is like, this is going to be inverse to why I don't like the ban, but it's like it shouldn't matter that much. Like the gameplay aspect should be significantly more big, and if that part doesn't matter, then like the flavor part kind of follows through with it. But if it's like, oh, this is broken, Colorless does too much, ban it, and it's not game breaking specifically, then I'm like, it's probably fine. We can probably leave it as is.
I like that you mentioned deck dominance, because we just finished that GLC 1K tournament, and it's noted that around 25% of the players who joined used Colorless. Do you think this is an okay threshold, or is 25% too much in your opinion for an enjoyable format?
Because there's 10 types and a secret 11th that no one talks about. And to be honest, 4, maybe 5 of them are clearly not as good. A quarter of 4 to 5 is exactly the pie. And that seems very fair to me. I feel like I've seen a couple reactions of like 25% is a lot. And maybe I'm just too used to a different game's tier 0 format. But if it's not like exactly 51 plus, like I don't think it's that big. Even 40, I'd be like, yeah, there was 40% of the room, or the top cut was like 3 to 4 people, and it was like won, but it didn't do that great besides the winner in top cut. Like that kind of thing would still seem fine. It would just say like, this is really good. You must be prepared for this. But 25 seems super run of the mill for me.
I agree. Even in the standard format, it's pretty common to have those kinds of numbers. And speaking of other card games, it's pretty common when a deck is considered best deck in format, or you're going to see it a bunch, that you tech against the deck. Now, the 1K was the first like really big tournament with Journey together. So I can kind of understand like, okay, you're not playing Enhanced Hammer, you're not playing Lost Vacuum like Ben Morse was. But I feel like we didn't really get the time to see people adapt to that. Do you think it would have been beneficial to have more time before this ban?
Oh yeah, that was my that's still my holdout. Even like post I've come to terms with it. The time thing is still like kind of awkward. There's very much a world that this could have self-corrected, and it's like we're in a Wailord world anyway. Even through having, crazy colorless cards, like it was very possible that ended up being the case regardless, but I mean we'll never know now.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of part of my gripe too, especially starting from the Marshadow Ban. Now, I know we have differing opinions on the Marshadow Ban, but cards like Amazing Raikou that It may have been broken with the Magneton that released around that time, but it got banned before any big tournaments could use it. And this is maybe less of a gripe with this ban specifically. This is more of a gripe for the overall GLC community, in that I feel discussions over banning a card are more common than discussions of how to adapt to a card.
I think there is generally like more comfort to be found in like, oh, we can fix this by removing something, and especially with GLC kind of being open communication with like Andrew Mahon about like card stuff, and even himself like bringing it up in the first place. That it's like it feels more possible and more realistic that things can be addressed with bans, which kind of like weirdly is a good thing, even though I don't like the idea of just banning cards for comfort. It's still like, oh, we can, we can find a solution. Like there's an avenue at all times, which is good, but it can be like a trigger happy kind of situation where maybe the solution is just to ban it, which feels like what happened with Raikou for the most part, lesser with Marshadow, which you mentioned Marshadow. I never had a problem with the card. I just think it's crazy, but realistically, like it could have stuck around. And maybe that would be the difference maker for like Psychic in like this format with like journey together cards. Maybe like, oh, Psychic is good enough that it toe-to-toes with Colorless, and now we have like a 50-50 split of those two being the best deck, and it feels less bad.
So the thought seems to be that by keeping some higher power level cards around, that they could balance each other, and that we don't necessarily have to ban cards, but rather just let it level out naturally.
At first, yeah. Maybe with time, it does show, yeah, man, can't let hops cards run around. Those are not okay. At least, even if it's like a couple of instances of insert broken deck or cards proving that they are that good is like warranted. It's going to feel bad, but like it would very well demonstrate and justify and cause every single ban to feel earned, and everyone can move on with it and call it a day.
In regards to balance, I actually have this interesting quote from Andrew Mahon that says, in regards to banning the double energies, it's less of a balancing question and more of shaping the format to be slower. He says he's more comfortable slowing the format down a notch. How do you feel about Mahon making a decision to direct GLC to what he feels like is the better card game experience?
I think he's allowed to.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it's his format. It's his format.
I think he's allowed to kind of steer it that way, especially since it's done well. It's done well up to this point. So whatever philosophies he's kind of pushed through up to this point have been, I would say, pretty rock solid. But I also think that there's like a point where you can like not let it go, but let it do some correcting, and like only step in when you really gotta, if it's getting like crazy out of hand. But I don't know if you feel the same way with like control is the word I want to use. That I'm okay with him having full control, steer it this way, even if it was like pretty hands-on constantly.
Well, I definitely have respect for Mahon, considering he made this format, and he's also a really good player. He has a lot of tops. I'm just concerned because my idea of a governing body for banning cards is like how you said earlier, where if something's making the game unplayable in terms of making the games last like way longer than 45 minutes or creating an infinite loop, then of course those need to be dealt with. No one's going to want to play GLC if that happens. Or if a deck becomes unbeatable by other decks, like a tier 0 deck, so to speak. But outside of that, I really appreciate a hands-off approach.
Would you mean be more receptive to a team of people that would like facilitate bans, or does that still kind of feel the same way as like one person doing it?
Inherently not, but especially not with the GLC community. And I say that I don't trust the GLC community to form the GLC banning government, and I don't mean this with any disrespect, but GLC players want to play their funny bad decks like Fire and have okay results against Colorless. But the thing is that if you're bringing your bad decks to a tournament, other people have different opinions of fun and different goals. They're here to win the tournament. If you want to play a bad deck, you're allowed to and have fun with it, but you have to find like-minded people. And my concern is this level of casual player is entering the realm of competitive GLC in the discussions on Twitter and Discord, and in their eyes they want to make the GLC format more fair. But in a competitive setting, there's always going to be a best deck in format, and if the worst deck can't beat it 50% of the time, then that's okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. Kind of a on the nose 100%. But now the funny hypothetical is, what if the fictional GLC ban cards committee that I'm making up right now is comprised of people like yourself who care about the competitive integrity of the game, and will put thought into the fun balance part and the identity balance part to make the format feel like it did before Journey Together was a thought in our minds. I'm taking a jab at Hops cards because they're really, really good.
The thing about committees is that, in theory, the committee wants the same thing as the community. And sometimes that's not the best answer, but it is the answer that the community wants. So if someone like me were to be part of that committee, the community would be miserable because I would just sit on my ass and not ban anything unless it was egregious.
Okay, so then we need both of us specifically so that I can say, no, we're banning it. It's the only way to fix it. That's the thing. A group of people would probably land on conclusions like that. They would eventually, someone would probably chime in and go, okay, you know what, guys? I think Forest of Giant Plants, it might be too good. And then they'll maybe autocorrect and get rid of cards like that. But alternatively, I mean, any single person can be that fallible, and the format sitting forever and ever and ever is also not a good thing. Like, I think cards probably do have to get banned eventually just by nature of eternal card pool. So there's technically maybe like a more correct answer or like a very manageable one, but like it's just more fun to speculate on which one would feel the best. And community of like your random elite four people who just have authority for some weird reason is one, easy to point a finger and yell at the entity that caused, why did they ban randomly Smooth Over Cargo because it became broken suddenly? Or it makes it a little less stingy than me shaking fist at Cloud, Andrew Mahon. Like, why did you ban my cards? It avoids those situations. Yeah, I mean, and that's probably way less important than like the health of the game, which is ultimately what I would say is the goal, which is why I'm not that mad anymore. Gritting my teeth through that, but
I mean, we both play a multitude of decks, but those decks include Colorless. And I think it's fine to say that we're not saying, oh, this is the end of GLC, like, this is a ridiculous ban. Like, we understand why it's banned. Like, it is broken. I think this was the safest play, so to speak, in regards to both game balance and making the community happy. I personally don't think it's the best decision, but it's really hard to steer a fan community. And again, I'm going to go back to EDH in those somewhat recent bans on certain cards that are pretty comparable to double energies that accelerate your board state were banned. And the committee that decides the bans got like death threats and handed it off to Magic to handle future bans. And in that sense, I think Mahon is doing a great job. But as a result, I think the decisions here are leaning more towards safe as opposed to the nuanced decisions I think Mahon could make as a very experienced card game player. What I'm saying is it's hard to balance a format as a separate entity that doesn't make the game themselves. And in that sense, I feel Mahon is making a safer decision that doesn't jeopardize anything, but isn't necessarily as nuanced a decision as someone of his card game caliber could be making.
Calling it safe makes it feel less bad because it realistically is safer. I wonder if you agree with this. I think what I would prefer, I'm going to say the forbidden words, Yu-Gi-Oh! Does unban cards eventually, and I would be very okay with this card's unbanned and trying it for X amount of time. Kind of only if it's like really, we can like really, really hone in like, yeah, this should be fine. There's been enough like theorying and discussion to some degree. Maybe we can have, 2 double energy cards. We can get double colorless back or whatever as an example. And like colorless will be fine. Something like that would feel good. And for other cards too, like, Marshadow, not that big a deal somehow. Or, Raiko, the rest of the deck maybe isn't cutting it right now. Come save us or something. I think that would be like a cool way to approach it. And my only hang up before I kind of like ask you finally, like, do you think that as well, is that ban lists like are just so volatile for like the casual like average player experience. Like if a ban list is like updating so frequently, it makes it really hard for people to like get in and like really lock into what a card pool looks like. It's a small ban list, but even just having to look at a separate resource to know what a list is like, and if it changes like with a frequency that's pretty aggressive, that is what would I think feel the most bad. At least as someone who's like, I'm always like being like, come play GLC to any stranger that's played the Pokemon card game before. I always like try to like advertise that I want them to play this format that I think is really good and really fun. And a ban list sadly does have that counterintuitive property. So then it's like my problem to be like, okay, there's a ban list, but like it changes, and I'll tell you what the ban list is. Like that just has so many moving parts that like makes me like not want that. But I think it's like probably the move that I would like in a dream world have. Now I don't know if you would be like co-signing mostly because you've experienced like Yu-Gi-Oh ban lists before.
So you made two interesting points here where cards can be unbanned or unbanned in a less powerful form, like you said, two double energies, maybe double turbo and twin, and that introducing a ban list complicates. What I would say is the goal of GLC is to make an easily understandable, hey, there's this format, you can only play one type, you can only play one copy of each card. You know, you don't want to be like, but you can't play double energies and colorless or like complex bands or anything like that. In regards to the first part, oddly, I don't think you can bring back just two double energy because that adds to the complexity of, well, why can I play twin energy but not double colorless energy, or kind of a pick one ban of like you can play either double colorless energy or twin energy. But anyways, in regards to the second point of unbanning cards, we have yet to see anything come off of the ban list of GLC. So we'd kind of be going off of theoreticals of whether Mahon is considering that. And you're right, taking cards off the ban list also adds to that complexity of like things being updated all the time.
Yeah, it just occurred to me also that if someone plays GLC, like say they start playing for the next month and they're experiencing, you know, just double turbo is legal and the other energies are banned, and then like in 5 months, you know, they hit cryostasis and came back and they're playing GLC again and like it's suddenly back, like that would be mildly confusing. It's not like that like severe, but it would like that's a case that can happen, and that like I feel just accessibility wise, like you said, is just not the move in most cases. Like it does hurt that very core, you know, alternate way to play Pokemon that's not the standard format kind of vibe.
So just to clarify, is our stance that if a ban on double energy needs to happen, it has to be either neither or both of those energy? Because otherwise it's adding a pseudo complex ban to the format?
Yes, but now that I'm thinking about it again, like cards like again like our Boss Lysander or Juniper Sycamore Research kind of situation exists as well. That like it'd be only twin and double colorless that can really do that. Double turbo is like functionally they're all different cards text wise, but twin and double colorless do the exact same thing within GLC specifically. But I mean, realistically, down the line, if there's, you know, the game's already kind of complicated, that I wouldn't be super opposed to like doing the one or the other kind of vibe. It does add like unnecessary complexity. Like complexity is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that it's in this case to be unnecessary, to be weirdly inaccessible or confusing, specifically for like a newer player. But even just like maybe like an unban, like I mentioned, would be like they just both come back. Like it's fine. Like Colossus is not that broken. Every other type got crazy support in a different set that made them all, you know, comparable or made it fair, and their broken stuff is equivalent to like a double colorless energies. An unban should always be on the table, and I don't think we have that transparency that it's always possible. At least that I've seen. Maybe I'm super wrong, but
And it is super cool that we could quite literally go on the Tricky Gym Discord right now and ask Andrew Mahon, and he'd probably answer it.
I would hope so.
But I think it's interesting you talk about unbanning cards for balance reasons. This is part of my concern with this ban, that the discussion around this card and partially around Marshadow Amazing Raikou is that the reason doesn't always stay consistent. Because while we both agree that double energies are broken, as I've stated before, Mahon makes a comment that it's not really getting banned for balance reasons, but more to create a slower, and I would venture to say more casual format. And then he also states that the double energies don't mesh well with future card design, because cards in Pokemon are designed for standard, and future standard cards won't consider cards that are rotated out. And then there's also the concern that it wasn't really given much time and that maybe people would tech cards for it. And it's just these multitudes of factors that make me concerned about the ban.
It's kind of having a child where you're like, well, yeah, I want it to be the greatest child ever, but I want it to be happy. Fine, GLC players, you want to be happy? I guess so.
Are you saying I'm the tiger
At
mom?
my detriment.
Am I the tiger mom? Being like, no, you have to wake up at 5 and start practicing piano.
You have to be good at sports and piano and get straight A's. Of course. And then this crazy hypothetical Andrew's like, hey kid, don't worry, man. You're doing great. Here's the ice cream. And both are valid. But I think He has slight authority here. Well, in the
Well,
hypothetical,
well,
he has the authority because he made the format, not because.
yeah. Going back to your point of banning cards and not achieving the desired result, I think ultimately that's where we're going to land, because I see a lot of discussion in regards to balance in GLC. Like people want deck types to be balanced or playable in competitive forms. But the thing is, I don't think banning the double energies do that. Because take a deck like Fire, which is arguably the worst deck in GLC. I don't think banning the double energies make the competitive experience of playing Fire any better, because like you said, now you just have to face Wailord, and I don't think Fire is equipped to beat Water or Psychic as they were to fight Colorless.
You're underestimating the turn 2 Ansdar Manitan. Trust.
Oh yeah, which two types have bench barrier?
Oh, hey, if you're playing bench barrier in your water deck, you're throwing. But you're right. It definitely does not help, I don't think. Yeah, you're right.
To wrap things up, do you think the double energy bans accomplish creating a more balanced format? And I say balanced in the way the GLC community thinks of it. And I think it's more accurate to ask, do you think the GLC format is going to be more fun for the community because of the double colorless bans?
I think it'll be more fun up front, but I would like just to feel validated if the three other decks, and maybe Dark is broken, right? Maybe Guzzler is knocked down a little bit, but maybe it's like, well, now there's room for Dark because Colorless isn't there as much. I don't know. Dark seems so bad, but maybe like the three decks are the three decks that I'm pedestaling to some degree create like a problem of like, can you beat these three decks? You can't plan for all of them. Kind of situation. Like I said, I wouldn't prefer that. It'd be nice if that happened, just so I feel good about my opinion specifically. But if the best case scenario is like, yes, this is better, and Colorless is fair, and maybe it's, Dragon and Colorless are homies, and they're just, hey, we got DDE, we got DTE, they're basically the same card to each other. We got to work for it sometimes, but we're still good. And then Water and Psychic, I don't know, they figure it out and they fight for eternity and auto balance. Like that could happen. I mean, that'd be better because I prefer the gameplay loop to be like, I just want to have fun playing, even though like I want to win games. Having it be like a palatable experience. Doing so is like what I think is gonna end up happening. If it's not that, I'm sure the community would cry enough for like some kind of change. Even if it ends up being the ban slope, kill Wailord. Galad's gotta go. Things like that.
That's my concern. I know it's a fallacy, like slippery slope. Like, oh, if you're gonna ban this, then what are you gonna ban next? But like, I feel like I'm starting to see that in starting with the amazing Recon ban into the double energies. But there's not really like a process to ban cards. I feel like it gets discussed and then it just happens. My concern here is that I don't think the bans are accomplishing the goals of the community, even though I think they think it will, in that they want to bring their fun decks to tournaments and go 50-50 with every other deck. But A, I think that's almost impossible, and B, I don't think we want that anyways. They just want to have fun, and that's admirable. I also want to have fun, and our definitions of fun might be different, and that's okay. But if they're not having fun because they're getting dog walked by the best second format, that's not going to change. And so I would really like to see a coming together of like what the GLC community actually wants, because right now it's a little unclear to me.
Time to make inflammatory posts calling for change.
I'm already
just
on
it. People rally behind it. That's the only way. No, it's probably we talked about like the self-correcting kind of aspect. Like if it's gonna happen, it'll be like surrounding the rest of things going forward, where even if it's like bad self-correcting, that's like probably somewhat productive, because then it could be like a, hey, let's look back at these things that happened, why, like the root of the problem kind of thing. And hopefully, and I say hopefully as if it's not going to be the case, Andrew Mahon is swift with the action for that kind of thing.
And I'm okay with that, because that establishes a pattern. Like, for example, Mahon said that one of his main problems with double energies is that for an energy attachment, you're speeding up the game without having to develop your board. And if that's the case, and that lasts a long time, then that's a pattern. And that actually informs us of cards that we might need to ban later that do the same thing. But right now, I feel like we don't have data. We just have a single point. That's not a pattern. It's not something we can make conclusions on. That's the start of how we can make conclusions. I think overall we're not too upset with the bans in regards to balancing reasons. I know Colorless is one of your favorite decks. My apologies. I think what we would both want is just a more methodical approach to these things.
That needs to be the case going forward. I would like it to be that way at least. Also, because I like talking about GLC, even if it's like, crazy nonsense like me saying research lab is chill. At least a conversation can happen like productively about like, oh, what does an unban mean? Is that possible? Hopefully, what like this whole discussion, community wide, generally leads to, or even just like more transparency. Like everyone will make an opinion and have a stance, and then that's like the gauge that we'll go off of going forward.
So I think that about wraps up our discussion on double energies. If you want to come yell at us about our bad opinions, you can contact me at WaveRacerTCG on Twitter, or my YouTube channel, WaveRacerTCG, and Mark at...
I have a Twitter, so it's at Marcus Garcia. It's a MarkisGarcia.
Yeah, send all of your good opinions to me and all of your complaints to him. This has been the...
That sounds fine to me. I love fighting.
This has been the Recon Directive, signing off.